Hi, I am Dr. Abbas Malik, and I am your instructor for this further mobile application development. This is the fourth lecture or fourth video in this series. If you have not subscribed this channel, then please subscribe it so that you can get the notifications of our new and latest videos. In the last video, in the last lecture, we developed this number game application, and here it is the we have the widget tree for that application. So we in the top we have the material app, and then it contains a scaffold. In the scaffold we have an application bar which contains an image and numbers and title as well. And then inside the body we have which contains the actual contents of that application. So if we look at our structure here, we are repeating the same structure three times to represent these information like the number rule game, then we have what is the rule, and then let's play with the numbers. And then if you look at the buttons as well, the structure of the button, that is also exactly the same. The only thing that is changing here is that numbers which appear on these digits, on these buttons. So yes, we have created that application using a very simple one page, and then inside the page we design that widget tree. But there is a better way to implement that application. For example, these buttons, we can design a customized widget which contain that complete structure, and the only thing that is changing is the number that appear on the page. So we can make that application or make that structure of or the GUI design or the widgets a more modular approach, so that whenever we need to use that button again in any page or any other part of the application, then we can just reuse it rather than rewriting the same code again and again. So that modular approach will make we can design once and then we can use it again and again. Okay, we'll use multiple times. So let's start thinking about that process. So let's make that first of all, make these button widgets as a customized widget. So let's it is for we add a new class or new file inside our project under the widgets, so number button, and that number button has the properties like number on press is selected is correct, and then it has like we can write once and then we can use twice for both left and right buttons, and then state is being provided in which this button widget is being used. Okay, so we have this sized box, then we have the elevated button, then we have column, then we have text, and then we are putting all those information, and then we have the final properties in that stateless widget, and then the number is actually the state is coming from the page in which this widget is appearing. The next we also design a separate class for the game title, and then again if we want to use the same title in the other pages of the application, then we can use it rather than rewriting that code again. Again, game rules, we can write the game rules. We create a separate widget for that one. We also create a separate widget for the prompt. Let's play game. Let's uh, tap on the larger button here, number here as well, that has been written here. And then it simplify our code inside our main page. So if we look at that, rather than we are writing that everything here, we have only say that we are creating the customized widget of the game title, game rules, and game players. And then if you look at here, we are using our number button, and then we are specifying the properties of that one. What we are going to do when we press this button, is it correct or not? If it is correct, selected or not, what is the number that we want to show on that number, and the same we are using for the right button, so reusing the number button twice. Okay, so this is the application. So I will quickly go through that application with you so that you can see. So right now we are again in we created that different type of widgets here under the widget folder. Then we have a pages, which is the one page which is actually So in the main, we are creating this main page, and then inside that main page, we have the application state, which is a stateful widget. And then we have the static, like we are telling that what is the maximum number that we want to show, what will be the increment in the scores. Then we are creating a random object from our math class, which will help us to generate the random numbers to show on the numbers. Then we have a game state. So where is the game state? Let me show you. It is a separate class that has been defined here. So inside this game state, we have left number, we have right number, then we have score, that score of the user. Then we want to show some feedback. Okay, if you look, go back to here, you can see that we have a, once you click on the right button, or the correct button, you can say that, then it will, for some time, it will show you that it is correct or wrong, and then accordingly. And then we also have a streak, how many correct answers you have given in a row. So that's what we have here. So we have is correct, is selected, slide, and then we have this game. We are creating the what you can say, that is the constructor of that game state. And then we have the copy with, we can have implemented that whenever we want to copy, we copy all those information, and then we can change some specific information that we want to change in here. So this is the game state that we have here. And on top, if we go back here again, we have the what you can say, that we have init state. We are creating the, in the init state, we are creating that game state. Init state is more like what you can say, that it is a widget lifecycle method which will help us to initialize the state once we have created that object. Once we have created that widget, we want to initialize certain things. For example, if we have some variables and we want to initialize those variables with some specific thing. In this case, what we are doing here, we are creating the game structure, we are creating the game state object. And the next thing that we are doing here, that we are generating the initial random numbers, and then we want to show those numbers on the, so we are initializing the state of our application or that widget that we are creating right now. So that is a, we will talk more about the widget lifecycle, what are the different methods that are present there, and then how we can manage that. But this is initializing the state of that widget. So we can override this init state method, and then we can perform some initialization actions in for that widget. And then we have the generate number again, which what we are doing here, we are say game state dot copy, and actually we are only changing the left number and the right number in that game state, and the rest of the game state will have the default values. For example, score will be 0, is selected will be false, and so on. And then we say that if these two numbers, left and right numbers, are equal, then we can do the same thing again. Otherwise, we don't need to do that. Okay. And of course, is correct is false. And by default, in the beginning, we have not selected any number. So by default, it will be a false value. Then we are checking here, that is the on press even. So whenever we are press a button, then what will happen? So we are checking is selected, is and the other thing, if we look at the state here, we also have created an enum. Just we created an enum in our previous version of the number game. We have a left and right. Okay, so we are checking that, and which number has, which button has been pressed. So first of all, we are saying if selected number is equal to dot left number. So if the number that's selected, which is coming as an input from there, so actually this is the what you can say, that left or right. So if it is collected with that, then we can say that it is collected, is left selected or is right selected. So based on that, we only need to understand if left is selected. If left is selected true, then it means left button we are talking about. If it is left selected is false, then we are talking about the right button. So larger numbers, so again we are checking that game dot select the left number comma right number, so we are checking the larger number, so which one is the maximum at there. And then we are checking the selected number, which is the left or right, and we are comparing it with the larger number, and then we are saying that is correct or not. If the larger number is equal to our selected number, it means we are correctly, the user has correct pressed on the correct number. And then we say set state, we are changing the streak value. And then we also, streak value is actually the state here in this stateful widget. So streak is equal to big 0 in the beginning. And then if we are giving the correct answer, then it will increase one value in the streak. And if there's an incorrect answer, then it will make reset that streak to 0. And then again we are copy the state of the game state, and then we are only changing the scores, we are not changing anything else. And then we can show the feedback is equal to 2. We want to show that feedback. Okay, so if I quickly jump into that application and run it, then you will be able to see that what I'm talking about. Okay, so it is coming up. So let me bring it here so that whenever it is ready, we can run and check our what I'm talking about. So show true, I mean, it will make that feedback true. It means it will be visible, and then after some time, it will make it false, and then that feedback will disappear. And then we can say is correct is equal to is correct, and then we selected side is equal to left or the right button that we are talking about. So we are doing that. And then we have I mean, we are putting some delay of the half a minute. Okay, and then we are show that feedback. Okay, and then after the once after the five half a minute or the 500 millisecond, we will make that feedback equal to false. It means that it will that feedback will disappear, and then it will go back and generate the new numbers, generate the new numbers and show them on the buttons as well. So here we are actually what you can say that we are building that whole scaffold. In the application bar we have the image and the text, and then we have the body, which is the container. And then here if you look at that, we are specifying the media query or the container properties. Then inside the child we have the game title that we have designed here. Let me show you the game title here. Then we have the game rules, and then we also have the play, what you can say that play prompt that let's tap on the larger number. And then here we have the widget, customized widget for the number button. So again, if you look at that, we have number is selected, is correct, on press. So let me go back, and then we are selecting that thing. So this is our application, and this application is available on the GitHub. You can download and you can try to understand what is happening over here. Let me quickly jump back to the here, and then let me go to our main and then run that application inside our emulator. So it is going in it. I mean, it's just compiling, and then it will move our APK file to the emulator and install that application, and then we can see the output. So here you can see that this is the splash screen when the application is being launched on the emulator, and then afterwards it is coming up. So now you can see that if I click on that, it will show you that for the half a second or half a what you can say that half a minute, 500 milliseconds, mean we are talking about half a minute, then it show you that feedback. Again, if I do that now, because the streak has become more than 2, it show me that output as well. If I want to click on the reset button, that is also present inside our page, and that streak. And then we have this one spacer, and then here we have that reset button, so we have that reset button. When I click on that, it will reset the state of our game state, and it will go back to the starting point. Okay, so this is the what you can say that the application. So I will keep that emulator running. I stop that application from running and close that And now we come back to our slides. So the next thing that we want to discuss, let me quickly come down here. So next thing that we want to discuss here is the how Flutter works. So we will talk more about a background, what is happening in that Flutter framework. So Flutter framework has three different type of the sections. Framework Dart, or the Flutter framework, or the Dart framework. You can say that the framework itself, where we have all the classes. We have the text class, we have the column class, we have the row class. So it has all those classes which we are using to develop the applications on top. uh, and then under that, we have an engine, which is a service protocol, which actually help us to convert all the code that we are writing into Dart. And then it is helping us to generate the background. We have the widget tree, then we have element tree, then we have a rendering tree. So it manage all those compilation, the conversions into the different target uh, platforms. And then the last part, the basic one, which is a platform specific embedded. So here it actually generate the targeted, or the for example, if we want to build an application for the Android, then it will make an app packaging. If we are talking about and then looking at the native plugins that we can use it. So it actually, the embedder is the place, or the tools which help us to generate the executable form of our application, targeted based on that we are targeting for the Windows, or the Android, or the iOS, or the Linux, or the web. So based on that, it will generate those things. Okay. So this is a frame, what you can say, how it works. Then we also have three different types of trees which exist inside our Flutter application. The widget tree that we have just seen, for a widget tree for our application number game. Then we also have an elementary. The widget tree and the elementary, they have a one-to-one correspondence. For every widget that we have created inside our application, in that build method, we also have an element. If we have a material app, then we have an element for that material app. If we have a scaffold, then we have an element for the scaffold. If we have a application bar, then it has an element for the application bar. And then if we have a column, then it also have a column element inside the element tree. So one-to-one correspondence between the widget tree and the element tree. But random tree are a little bit different. Render mean that the the actual rendering, showing those elements, to draw those elements on the screen. And again, render objects are different. If we are talking about an Android, then the render objects are different for the Android devices. If the iOS, then the render object is different for that one, for web, for the Windows, and so on. So based on the target, the platform that we are targeting, these render objects may be different depending on the target that we are targeting. So here is an example. For example, if we have a stateless widget here, then we also have a stateless element. If we have a rendered object widget that we want to render, we also have an element for that one. Again, we have another render object. It means it is a visible element on the screen. So we say render object. So maybe we can say it's a text, it's a button, it is a checkbox, it is a radio button, and so on. So which are visible on the screen. So we have render objects elements for that one. And then we have a stateless widget, again, stateful elements. We also have the state of that one. And then we have one-to-one correspondence between the widget tree and the elementary. On the other hand, in the render, because stateless is what you can say, stateless element is not visible on the screen. Okay, so that's why it has no element or no render object for that one. For example, the column is combining the multiple widgets into a vertical direction. So the column is more like a container which help us to organize those widgets which are visible on the screen. So container, or the what you can say, that the column will not have a render object, but the objects or the widgets which are exist inside the container or inside the column, they will be visible on the screen. So for those visible elements, we only have the render object, and for the elements which are more like the layout widgets or the stateless widget or the stateful widgets or the container which containing that thing, not container is also a visible element. So all those non-visible which are more like used for structuring all the widgets into a specific layout, they don't note, they are not rendered on the screen, so they will not have a render object in the render object tree. So that is that. So widget tree and the element tree, they have a one-to-one correspondence for each and every widget that we are specifying in our application. We have uh, an element in the element tree, but in the render object tree, we have only the render objects for all the visually visible widgets, and all the layout widgets are do not have a render object tree. So this is three different trees which exist in our application. Then we also have the states. We have the application state. We also have the ephemeral state. State contains in a single widget is called the ephemeral state, current page or the progress of the complex animation, current selected tab. The application states more like user preferences. For example, you have said that I like the dark mode, so it will show you that application in the dark mode. You like the light mode, so these are the some preferences which are represented the app level, not only one page but application level preferences of the user. Authentication, for example, in the beginning you need to log in into your application, so it will check that, it will keep that state of the authentication if the user is authenticated or not authenticated. If it is not authenticated, then app will not provide all the services which we are the app is supposed to provide to the legitimate or the authenticated users. If it is authenticated, then it will provide those services. So that is the state which we can maintain in the application level, and then we also have the widget level states. Then we also have the widget lifecycle methods. The first one in it, we have seen that example inside our improved number game or the modular number game version of our application, where we are initializing the state of the game state and generating two random numbers and showing them on the. So that is initializing the state of the stateful widget. And then we also have the change dependencies, did update widgets, and the build method is by default. I mean, we have to call that build method without any condition. It means every widget will have a build method in which it is building a specific widget which will return that widget for us. So build method is being what you can say that called every whenever we are creating a widget. Did change dependencies and did update widget. It means whenever we want to update, for example, the stateful widget, and the state has changed, then it will need to update that widget. So it will call that did update widget. Okay. And once we are no longer using that, we don't need that widget, then we can call the dispose of method. So if we are initializing, for example, if we are connecting with a cloud database, in the dispose we can close that connection. If we are opening a stream of the stream in the init state, we can close that in the dispose of. So it means that at the end of the widget lifecycle, if we need to perform certain specific tasks so that we can cleaning up all the opening connections, we want to close them in the dispose of, so we can do those kind of things in the dispose of method, and we can override these methods whenever which is required, that we want to tap into a specific method of our widget lifecycle. If you want to learn more, then you can click on the learn more link, and then it will give you some more information about that. But for this one, we will talk. The next thing is that we have, I mean, actually not we, but it's a Flutter who has make a series of videos which are available on that link, and you can go through and they will give you more information or the more details about that, how these life cycles and all these, different framework, their different sections, the framework classes, then we have C++ libraries, then we have the embedder, so they give you more details about that. So let's come to the stateful widget. So if we want to pass data from top of the tree down to the tree, so there is a way. I mean, for example, if in the material in the start the user has given the username, and then we want to pass that username information to the text down here. So this text we want to show that username, and but the point is that we have a hierarchy. In the material lab we are creating the profile page. In the material profile page we are creating the profile card. In the profile card have the text, and this is the point where we want to show that username. So there's a naive way or the simpler way that you can say that is you can pass on these information to every widget, and then once it reach to the target where we want to display it, you can display that. But this is something is not a good way to pass data from top of the tree down to, because every time we need to inside the constructor of each widget, we need to pass this data from top to the bottom where it want to reach. So this we need to find another way. So the answer to this is the inherited widget is an efficiently propagate data down the widget tree. And if you have uh, observe that when we are defining that theme in the application or the material app, then we defining the theme data, and then we are specifying the color that we want to. If we change this color, then the theme color has been changed, and then the top bar will changing that color. Okay. So if we want to use that, or if we want to access that theme data, then we have that theme dot off context dot color scheme dot primary. So actually what we are doing, we are changing the background color in a specific widget, and then we say rather than we specify this thing, we are trying to access the theme of our application, and then we are accessing the color scheme, and then we have color scheme dot primary color that we want to use here. But we need to understand what is happening here. So actually this theme combined with the theme data is a inherited widget. In theme is an inherited widget, and this widget contains the theme data. So whenever we say theme dot of the context, it will give me that theme data, which is a color scheme. And then inside the color scheme, we have defined different type of data. For example, primary color, secondary color, and so on. So we can write this line of the piece of the code anywhere in any widget. Doesn't matter it is on the top level or third level or fourth level or whatever nested level it is. We can directly access this theme data using that theme dot of context. And this theme is actually is a class which has been which are inherited from the inherited widget, or which extends the inherited widget, which is child of the inherited widget. And due to that, we can access that thing here. Okay. So the other thing, remember that we are trying to media query dot off context, and then we get the size of the screen, and then we say what is the width, and we want to specify the width of the container or a specific widget that we want to change. So again, this media query is also an inherited widget, and then we are not passing this media query in every constructor. Rather than we directly access that media query of the application context and get the size of the width. Okay. So that we are actually have been using the inherited widgets to access different type of data which present on the application level. Okay. Now the what is the benefit of this inherited widget is that we have the material application inside, we have the user name, and then we can directly access that username inside the text widget rather than passing it to every constructor inside that hierarchy. So we can pass data wherever it is needed directly, and that is the use of the inherited widget. So now there are two different ways to create the inherited widget. The first way is the direct way. It means that we actually we open our project, we create a new class, and then we extend that class from the inherited widget, and then implement all the required methods to create that inherited widget. And the second method is that we have the packages, which I mean, we if we just open what you can say that browser, okay, So let me quickly open the Chrome. No, let me quickly open up a new Chrome here and then bring it here. So if I just come down here and I say pub.dev, when I click on that, so actually this is the pub.dev, which where you can find a lot of different packages. For example, I want to create a inherited widget package. So let me see, say context and things, geo provider. So we can try to find out inherited, okay, KJX and so on. So, I mean, we can try to find out the packages for our application if we want. So this pub.dev is actually, there are different experts or the different users which are creating different packages, and then they can publish that on this pub.dev, and then we can just explore them and then we can use them. So rather than we create our new things, well, we can use those uh, package that help us to implement those inherited way, and that makes our life easier. Okay, so the first thing is that direct method. So again, what we can do, we can create for example my counter, and then extend the inherited widgets inside. Inside we have a counter, we have a get method for to get that private property of this function of this class. Then we have the constructor, which is required child, so we need to provide that widget child. And then we, because widget inherited widget, it has a child, so we need to provide that child, otherwise we cannot create that inherited widget. So again, we have a static my counter. We are creating the off method for that one, and remember that we have used here. So we are using that off. So actually inside this theme, they have defined this off method, so we are also trying to define that same method here. And then we also have update should notify. So if there is a change in the private properties of this inherited widget, we want to update that information wherever it is needed. Okay, so the problem is that this inherited widget class is immutable. It means that if we are extending that class into another class, then it's all these variables, all that variables which exist in that child class, they must be final. They cannot change. You can initialize only one time, and after that you cannot change. But then what is the purpose of that? Because we are saying that whenever there is a change inside the state, then we want to update the thing. So it is a cumbersome to implement directly, because what we need to do to solve that problem of the immutable class, what we do, we pair it with a stateful widget. It means that we are creating this my counter class inside another stateful widget, and then that this my counter becomes a state of that stateful widget. And then whenever there is a change inside that state, it will regenerate, it will rebuild that inherited widget every time whenever their state is changed. So there is a one way to implement that kind of a behavior. Or we also have the inherited notifier combines with the inherited widget and the change notifier, and then we can use that to implement an inherited widget. So again, if you are an expert user, you go into that way, understand how we can implement those things into direct way, creating your own. Of course, that will give you a more control on your inherited widget. But if you are not an expert user, then what we can do, we can use the packages which are already being created by the other expert users, and they has been vetted, or they has been, what you can say, that controlled by the Flutter framework or Flutter team. They verify them, they are okay or not. And then we can also look at, for example, we want to use the provider package. Okay, so let's go back and then we say provider. So when I say provider, so look at that, there is a 10.9 thousand or more than 10,000 of likes. We also have 150 points, 1.73 times it has been downloaded. And so here, if you click on that, it will give you the examples as well, change log, how you can examples are there, how you can install that thing. Either you can say provider, you can write that things inside your Flutter application, or you can just write do the command flutter pub add provider. It will automatically add the latest dependency for that provider. So again, we can look at these numbers, and then we can say that it is a trustworthy or not, and based on that we want to use that package in our application or not, so we can decide about that. Okay, so let me quickly go back here so we can uh, so what we are going to do here, remember this the sample application, the whenever we create a new application inside a Flutter, it creates that counter. So we want to convert that counter into an inherited widget type. Okay, so first of all, we are going to create a what you can say that we create our a new Flutter application. So new when not Flutter application. So first of all, we need to create a new open the VS Code, and then we say Control P, and then we say we want to run the Flutter. So when you say Flutter application, and we want to code it inside the Flutter dev, and yep, and then we can write say that the names are actually like this. So this is our lecture number, lecture 4, and then this is our what we can say that counter underscore provider underscore app. Okay, so we press enter, it will create that application for me. Okay, so now if I look into that lib, we have this main application, and if we try to run that application on our, let me quickly go with that, and then we want to do this, we want to close that thing, we also want to see our emulator which is running. So and then we can go here, and then we can just do that. So we can run our application in that. Let me quickly make sure that we are selected the emulator, run that application. Because it is running for the first time, it will take a little bit longer time. And let me do one more thing here. I want to create a new folder here, and I say we have the provider. And inside the provider, I am creating a new application. We say counter underscore provider dot. And then here I create a class. And then inside the class, I say it is a counter provider that should extends the change notifier. Okay, so that should extend the change notifier, and then we can hit. So inside this class, we have an int variable which is the count, and that is initialized to 0 in the beginning. Right? And then we have int get, we say count, and that will return me underscore the private property of that. So we have actually created the get method. So whenever we say uh, uh, the object of this class dot, it will give me the count, it will give me the private property of this one. And then we also have the method which is the increment count. Let me say here in the increment count, and then we want to do underscore count plus plus, and then we are calling the notify listeners method. So what we are going to do here, we are create a counter, not counter, we say count provider. Okay, so we have a count provider class. Let me rename it as well so that we are not using the counter, we are providing the count. So that's done. So we have a count provider class which extends or the child of the change notifier, and then we define one private variable here. We also get implement the get method for that private property, and then we also have the increment method. But at the end, once we are increasing it, we say have a notify listener. So what does it mean? So this count provider is kind of what you can say that where the user can subscribe for any changes that happen in that object or in that class. And if they have subscribed or that specific part or specific class for any for of notification of any changes, then whenever there is a change, we want to notify those subscribers that there is a change inside the values or inside the that specific data part of that class. So we are notifying those whoever has subscribed to that this for the changes that for this class. Okay, so we have created this class. So now you can see that if I click on that, everything is working perfectly fine. And then you know that this thing is actually coming, uh, this what you can say that this uh, counter is coming from this stateful class. And if I just try to remove that one, then of course it will give me an error message. We don't have that one. So let me quickly create a new, let me control Z because uh, we are going to do that. Let me, everything is working perfectly fine. Then let me make a new folder here. And then here I want to share pages, and inside the pages, I just re-put it over there because we are going to copy this that part and put it into our, so rather than we are writing everything by ourselves, we are just going to copy this thing from the here. So that's why I just reset, bring it back that code. So rather than so now we say inside the page, we create a new page, new file, and that file will be our home page, home underscore page dot, and that will be our, what you can say that will be a state full widget or stateless widget. Let me quickly check that thing we are talking about. It is a stateless widget, okay, which is the home page. Okay, so we say stateless widget because we are not maintaining state inside that widget, rather than we are maintaining the state inside that counter provider. So counter provider is providing that values which are changing, but not the state itself. So let me quickly, now what you can say that copy this part. We are saving this thing, and then we are putting that here inside our home page, and then rather than we are returning this, we want to return that. Okay, scaffold, return scaffold. We need to put a semicolon here. No, let me quickly check what we are copying here. We are copying the whole. Okay, we just need to delete that this part. Okay, so so now of course we don't have a title. So when we don't have a title, it means that we need to have a final final filter. I say final, and then we say string, and then we have a title, and then of course we need to specify the uh, required and this dot title. Okay, so when I do that, so we have that widget dot title rather than we have this. We say we are using the title from here. That is okay. And the other thing that we want to do change inside the main, because we don't need anything now. Yeah, we don't need it now, so we can delete that part. And then here, rather than we say we have the home my widget. So we did not change that stateless. So let me quickly change it. Let me here and press the Alt button here, Alt here. And then I say it is our home page. Okay. So this is our home page, and then we want to use it as our home page. So home page, press enter. So now if you look at that, it is giving me the error message. Why? Because we are not using that one here, because we don't have any private property here. We also have not defined that method here. So what I need to do here, that I want to implement that, we need to access that provider here, and then access it and then use it here. So how we can do that? Okay, so that is the question that we can answer here, that we want to use the information from that counter. So we have the what you can say, that we can say context dot watch. So we can say, rather than having this thing, we say our context and then dot watch. Okay, the other thing that we need to do here, before we can jump into that one, we need to define the providers here. So let me quickly uh, remove that thing. And then here inside the constant app, we say run app, but we want to use the providers. So inside this one, rather than we use this, we are say that we want to provide the provider. So we say multiple multi sorry multi provider. Yes, the other thing that we have not done yet is our the pub spec YAML. So if we look at that, we don't have any provider. Uh, so what I need to do here, I go into the terminal and then I click Flutter pub add provider. So when I click on that, it has added. So look at that, it has added me this thing. Now I can go here and then I say multi provider, and inside we need to have a provider, and that provider will be our what you can say, that we can provide providers, and that will be inside the uh, here. And then we can say change notifier provider, and then we want to create. So we are going to put underscore, and then we say have count provider, and we are creating that count provider. And then after that we have a child, and then here we can put our application. So now what we do over here, we have enclosed our application inside the multiple providers. So now inside the context of our application, we have defined a count provider, which will help us to use. So first thing, I mean, if I just go back to my slides here, first, we need to create an object. The second, we need to add a provider. The third thing, we add the count provider or the provider count class, which is the child of the notifier, and then we specify that child, that class, and then the next thing that we want to do is the changing that thing. So we are enclosing, we are putting that provider inside the context of our application. And then the last thing that we need to use it here. So let me go back here, and then we are running our application. And now we come back here. So here, rather than, because now we want to, what are we going to display here, that number. So we say that we want to say context dot watch, and then what we want to watch, we want to watch the, what you can say, that we don't want to go there. This is our home application, and then we want to watch that uh, what you can say that the count. So, but before we need to tell which specific provider we are talking, so we say count provider. And now if I click on that, we are count. So if I do that and then open my here, so it is still having the problem. So again, we also need to do the same. So we can simply say that we want to access from our context. We want to read. I will explain, and then we need to say count provider, and then we say dot, and then we have the increment count method that we want to access it here. And now, if I just refresh my application, it is restarting, and then if look at that, when I do that, it is doing it. So now what we are doing here, we don't need this import package here. Okay, so now instead of having we have a stateless widget, and then these numbers are coming from our provider. Okay, so let me close that one. So which is coming from this provider class. So here we have an integer value, a private one. We also have a get method which get me the access to this private property, and then we also have this one. And the other thing is that whenever we press on this one, we are coming into this class and increasing the value of that counter and then notify the listener. So now what is the difference between these two lines that we have written down here? The one is that we are say context.watch, and then we want to watch the counter count provider, and then we want to watch or the observe the count. It means that we are registering this text widget for any kind of changes which happen in that count property of the count provider. So we are subscribing for that changes. So whenever we are calling this method, it go into that method, increase the value, and then it will run notifier. So when it run that notify listeners, it will come down here back and then tell this text widget that the value that you are showing on in yourself, it has changed. So it will change the value accordingly. So it will redraw, it will rebuild that widget with the new value that is coming from the count provider. Okay, so when you say watch, so actually we want to use that value inside our widget, and then we also want to subscribe this widget for any changes that is going to made in that count value. So when you say watch, we are not only accessing the value, but we are also subscribing for any future changes in that value. We are subscribed. So whenever we come down here and this method is being called, it will update the information. It will notify this text widget that there is a change in the count, so you need to update yourself. Okay, so we are telling that. So that's a subscription mean the watch. And the other thing is that we have a read method. So inside the context, so we also have the provider. And if you look at that, it also has imported the provider package for me because we are using the watch and the read method, which are coming from the provider. So here, watch mean that we are want to access the count value, but we also want to subscribe for any future changes. But when you say read, it means that we want to access that method, but we don't want to subscribe for any kind of future change because this is a method. This is not going to change. This is something which is like we don't want to subscribe. So this method, the floating action button, is not a subscriber for any changes in the count provider, but when we because we are using the read method. So again, read method and the watch method only use the value and also subscribe for any future changes. Read method only use that value and does not subscribe for the future changes in that one because this is a method. So we can specify that thing. Okay, the other thing, so in this way you can see that we have converted our simple counter app into a provider, and then using that provider as a state of that application, so we can get those states. So what is a what how we can use these providers? We can use these providers specifically, I mean, for example, you want to build what you can say that to-do list. So to-do list that maybe you want to have multiple pages inside your application, and then everywhere you want to access that specific to-do list, then you want to pass on that to-do list to every page. So, or you can use the provider so that wherever you need the data, you can access that using the context, because you have put that provider inside your context of the application, and on the top level that data is available, you can access it anywhere in any page in any widget using that context.read or context.watch method. Again, if you are using the watch method, you are subscribing for future changes, and you are also using that value or the data. And then for the read method, you are only using the accessing that information, or the accessing that part of the class or the provider, but we are not subscribing for the future changes. So that is the first thing. And let me go back to the slides, and then we can um, okay, so this is what you can say that where we are subscribing to that count changes for the future changes, and then here we are trying to run that method which is present in the count provider, and then increment the values, and then after the increment, we are notifying the text widget that the value of the count has changed. Uh, if you go back to our previous slides, like here. So here we are using theme.off. Okay. So why, I mean, but here we are using the watch and the read method. So actually, these methods are kind of the wrappers for these things. So if you look at that, we have provider is coming from our provider package dot off, and then we are telling which specific provider or the inherited widget we want, or the data provider or the data part which is we want to use. So we have a provider count, and then we have a context, and then we are listen is equal to true. By default, this listen value is true. So if you are using the provider dot off with a specific data part that we want to use and context, and then we say dot count, it will say yes, I want to subscribe for any future changes. It means we want to listen any changes which happen in that count. Okay. So you write this line in place of this or this, so they are exactly the same. Of course, context.watch and that data provider and dot count is much simpler as compared to this one. But if you want to use the read, then read is equivalent to this one. So on press, we say provider dot off provider count, or the count provider. I mean, here in that example that I have just coded, it is a count provider. And then this context, and the listen is equal to false mean that we don't want to subscribe for any future changes. So when you say listen true, we are subscribing for future changes. So it will be notified whenever that count value change, it will be notified to the text widget. And then here we don't want to subscribe for the future changes. So these are the equivalent things. So this is equivalent to that, and this one is equivalent to that. So you can write either uh, style of the code, whichever you prefer. Okay, so this is the implementation of the counter app with the inherited widget. So of course, with the provider package, implementing the inherited widget is much more simpler rather than implementing by yourself. So if you want to understand more, then of course you can, because that provider package is open source, you can go and look at that open source code, and then you can try to understand how they have implemented the uh, inherited widgets, and then you can replicate yourself if you want to get more control on your inherited widget as compared to using the wrapper packages. Okay, so that is the enough for the state. We have a stateful widget, then we also have the inherited widget and how we can manage the state using the inherited widget using the provider. We have seen it. So this is about the state management of a widget inside the Flutter. The next topic that we want to cover is the user input. So we have different type of user input. We have buttons. We have already seen some buttons here. Then we also have the selectable text. Selectable text mean that in the text we can only show a text, but the user cannot select or interact with that text. But if you want that this text should be selectable by the user. We can copy and from the application and paste it somewhere else. Then you need to use the selectable text. We also have the formatted text. We can create a rich text format. Uh, I mean, we can make the text bold or italic. If you want to, for example, you have a big sentence or big paragraph, and then you want to use only part of that paragraph, some words make the bold or italic or underline, then you can use the text span. Otherwise, you can use the rich text. So rich text help us to make a more word type of application where you can um, you can format the text within that application. And this is an link for that GitHub. It is a Flutter sample which give you a very simplistic editor using the rich text and span. You can go there and you can look at the code, and then you can try to understand how we can implement that simplistic editor using the Flutter in a Flutter application. We also have text field. Text field is more like when we are asking the user to give us the input. For example, you have an application where you want to ask user to register themselves. You want to get their first name, last name, a mobile number, username, password. So that's kind of, so we need to use the text field for those kind of inputs that we want to get from the user. Uh, Here are some what you can say that some properties that we can specify. We have a decoration in that how it will be visible on the page. Controller is more like a text editing controller which control the text input programmatically. If you want to change it, if you want to what you can say that if you want to programmatically control the input which is coming from the user, then you need to have a controller. And it is an optional thing, it is not necessary. But definitely you can have a text editor controller which can control the input of the user. Then we also have on change whenever there is a change. I mean, when we are typing, so we are changing the values inside that text field, so that will always call that on changed method. We also have an on submitted method which triggers indicating user is done editing and tapping the enter. Whenever we are inside the field and we press enter or we tap enter on the what you can say that on screen keyboard, then it will call the on submitted method, and then we can implement those things inside our text field, and then we can see the changes. So here is an example. So first of all, this is on submitted. So when we submit, when we press enter, we want to show a snack bar. So again, you can see that here when we are typing, and once we are typing, we say hello to text input field, and we press enter, it will show us the snack bar. And the other thing that is here is the on changed. And in on change, what we are doing here, we are printing that message. User is changing the value in the text input field, and we are putting that value. So if you look at that, we say hello. We type hello text input field. So for every change which is happening inside this input field, it is actually printing that in our output on the on our console in our if I just quickly show you, it is the output here. So it is coming the output here in that output section. So that is coming from here. Okay. So here you can say that every time we are changing the value inside the text field, it is printing a message on the output window. Okay. Okay, then we also have a form container. Form container means it is an optional container in which we can put these text input fields inside. We can group them together. I mean, if we were talking about the user registration, so it has multiple fields. We can combine them together. We can group them together into a form. And then remember, we have the uh, widget tree, we have element tree, and then we have the render tree. This form is a container which is all group the different fields which are visible on the page. So we have a form widget inside our widget tree, and then we also have form element inside our element tree, but it will not have a render object inside our render object tree. Okay, so again, if you want to, this is a link for the sample app using the app form. You can go there and then you can use it. and you can try to understand how we can implement that thing. The other thing that I want to highlight here is the text form field. We can say what we can say. We have a form, and inside we every text every field is wrapped or inside a form field. So we say form, inside we have a form field, inside the form field we have a text field. So rather than having that multiple hierarchy, we can also use text form field or text form checkbox, text form radio button. So in this way, they are already wrapped inside the form field, and we don't need to do that. So we have form specific fields or the widgets which are already present. We can directly use them, or we can wrap them into the form field by ourselves. Again, depending on which specific thing you prefer, but you can do that. The next thing, again, we have input chips, we have choice chips, we have filter chips, we have action chips. Uh, that is, I mean, if you click on those, they will take you to the documentation of those classes, and then they also have these samples or the examples of how you can use it. We also have the chips. We have label and avatar. So this is our label, chef dash, or the firefighter dash, or the musician dash. But this the image which is coming in the beginning, that is avatar. It is an optional property, show icon or a picture. On delete, I mean, we can, if we say on delete callback, then it means it will show me a cross button here, and then I can delete or I can remove that chip from the visual output. So this is, again, we can more customization on the shape, color, and icon theme for the chip. We can do that. We also have a drop down menu, allow user to select a choice from a menu of the options. Places selected choice in text field, can help filter the contents. Again, if we click on that, it will show me something like that. So I have implemented a small part. So again, in the drop down menu, we need some entry that we want to provide a list of drop down menu entry. So we have a controller, again, because this, if you look at that, this is actually a text field, but with some option where we have a very specific information that we can put over there. So we can also have a text editing controller if we want to control that thing on selected. I mean, if we are selecting specific option, then what will happen, or what we want to perform initial selection, what will be the initially. I mean, if we look at that right now, orange is selected in the beginning. So what will be shown here in the beginning? So that is called initial selection. For drop down menu entry, we can specify, we are actually making an alias for this specific type of. So we say icon color entry, and then here what we are doing, we are specifying the alias. We are specifying this as a type of this one, and then we are creating an enum. Here we are generating the types. We have smile, cloud, and brush, brush or heart, smile, cloud, brush, and heart. And then here we are specifying the structure. So if we look at the smile, it contains three different values. So now here we are defining that these values, first one is label, second one is an icon, third one is a color. So we are specifying these things here. We are specifying the structure of that type. And then finally, we are creating the list of entries. So we are creating the list of entries that we can use inside our drop down menu as an entry or the information that we want to show. And when we click on the drop down menu, so here, the example is that we are specifying the controller. Again, that is a text editing controller. Enable filter is equal to true. I mean, if we click on here and then we can start typing, then we can filter the options which are being shown here. Okay. Uh, so I focus on tab, yes, true, loading, leading icon. Again, we have a leading icon here, this one, and then it shows search. Then we say constant text color. So the by default, the value that is coming down here, it is a color icon. And then here we are specifying the on select, what we are going to do. So we say selected icon is equal to icon color. So actually we are changing the state so that it will update that specific widget and show the selected information inside that widget. And then lastly, we are specifying which specific entries we want to show when we click on that drop down menu. Okay, so this is an example of the drop down menu. We also have slider, adjust the value by moving an indicator. We can specify the current value. We can change, we can execute a method when values are being changed. We can also specify what is the minimum and the maximum value that between which the slider is moving. We also have divisions between the min and max, how many intervals we have, how many divisions we have. We also have the checkbox and switches. So again, we have the value either true or false, or on changed, callback triggered when toggles. Okay, so whenever we are toggling this selected or not selected. So we also have the radio buttons. So radio group contains the radio buttons, and then we need to group them together so that inside a radio group selected between the mutually exclusive options. Huh? I mean, for example, if we are running our application, we are running either on Android or on iOS. We cannot run at the same time on both places. So we can only use one platform at one time. So we can say mutually exclusive. So value represents the current button value. Whatever the value, we can assign different values. We can even assign the integer values or the string values. Again, we have the group value. So group value, selected value for the group. So and we have multiple buttons inside the group. So what is the current selected value for that group? That is go into the radio group, and we call it a group value. And then on change mean whenever there is a change in the different selection has been made in that radio buttons, then that will be triggered. The We can trigger that method, the on changed. Okay. We also have the checkbox list title. So it is more like we are putting some title as well. So it has a label for that switch or the checkbox. We also have the date picker dialog. We have a time picker dialog. So again, we can get the information about the date or the time from the user. Uh, the next thing that I want to discuss is a splash screen. Whenever we are running an application, so let me first close that folder. We are done with that application. So we say close that folder, we close that application. And then whenever we are running an application, it always come with this Flutter, what you can say that Flutter logo, and then after some time it will disappear and it will show us the application. So this is a splash screen. So screen that appears when app first launched, typically displaying the app's logo or the brand, enhance user experience. We can brand reinforcement. We can tell the user whichever brand, whatever logo, user engagement, loading the feedback in the background. We can maybe we want to get fetch some data before we can show the application, because our application is not ready yet for the user. So we can show that splash screen, and then once our loading is finished, our initialization of the application is finished, then we can show the application to the user, rather than we show the application and still not ready, and user is trying to interact with that application and it is not responding. So that kind of a smooth transition background task we can perform during that splash screen. So let's how we can customize, how we can customize that splash screen. We want to use a custom splash screen. Then how we can do that? Okay. So this is the next thing that we are going to do today, and we will also see practically. So first thing is that we need to add a package. So first of all, let me create a what you can say that a new. So let me control P. I want to create a new Flutter application. Yes, and then we are here, and then we select a folder, and then we can select that. We can say that lecture 4, and then we are going to make a Ninja Turtle, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I don't know how many of you know about that series. So we have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle underscore app. So I am just going to do that, and it will create that specific application for me. And I can click on the lib, and I can run that application. I can run that application inside of my emulator. So it will start, and then it will actually launch a new application. Okay. while it is doing, let's go back to the slide. So what we want to do here, we want to we want to add a new Flutter native splash screen. Okay, so now the point is that when you say we want to create this Flutter native splash, we want to add that package. So again, this package has been, what you can say that, where is my here? So here I can just go on the pub, and then I can say that I want to check the Flutter underscore native underscore splash. So again, we can go check, and then we can check it has been downloaded 962,000 times. The point which are 160, there are more than 9,000 likes on that. So we are going to use that one to implement our uh, so we also need to some uh, image asset that we want to use for the splash screen. So let me quickly, because I already have those packages. Okay, so let me put it that. And first of all, let me check where is my application. It is running. Yes, it is running that application. Okay, so now the first thing that I need to do is the run. So we say Flutter pub add. And what was the package name? The package name is Flutter underscore native underscore splash. So when I do that, and if I just go into our pub.yaml file. Now you can see that it has added that thing. Now the next thing that I want to do is it needs to add our packages here. So let me quickly bring up here. So we have these packages. So I have downloaded these images already. So I have created that assets folder, and then I want to go into the Flutter dev. This is the application, that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle application, and I put it here. And as soon as I put here, it showed me that assets and the images here. So the next thing that I want to do here, I need to use that asset. So I will just uh, do that, uncomment it, and then here I say assets slash images, and then I need to remove that part. Okay. Next thing, we have done that. So let me quickly come down here and then go to the slide. So we have added a package. We have added our images. Then we need to add Flutter native splash section in the pub spec.yml file. So if I go back to our here and then click on that, then it will tell me that I want to add this thing here. So actually, it is telling me that I want to add this, and I want to add that thing inside our pub.yaml, and we are after that we are putting that section, and inside that section I need to specify the color, which color we want to use it. So maybe just stick to that one. Let's see how which type of color it comes in, and then we need to tell that which specific image we want to use it. So let me do that, and let me do something like this. Okay, so like this, and then we say as inside the assets, we have images folder, and inside the images, which specific we want to use that Ninja Turtle featured.png as our, so we say ninja underscore turtles underscore featured.png. So we are specifying. The next thing that I want to specify is this thing, that for the Android plus 12 and onward, we want to show these things. So let me copy these things here, and then we don't want to do that. We will leave that, and then we also need to make sure that we are putting the same image here as well. And we can copy, we can paste it here, and we are putting that. So now we are done. So in the top level of our spec.yaml, we created a new section, Flutter native app, and then we are specifying these things. And once we have specified these things, then we need to add a, what you can say, that we need to run that specific, we need to run that command. So what is that? We have a dart, and then we say run. Sorry, I don't want to, I want to run in my, I don't want to write here. Let me control S. And then we can here, we say dart run flutter underscore native underscore splash, and then we say we want to create. So what will do, this command will do, it will go into the individual folder for the Android, for the iOS, for the web and Mac or so on. It will go into those individual folders and create, based on that specification or the configuration, it will create those splash screens for them. So when we do that, so actually it will start running it and executing the things and then adding those things. And once it is done, we can run the application. Let me stop that application. And I know that there will be a problem. Hmm. Application, I think this is the previous application that is running. Let me stop those things and then run that application for me. So let me quickly, it is saved. I do that again, just to make sure that everything is working perfectly fine. So this part is done. Now let me go to the main and then run that application and see if it is coming up or not. It is. So now you can see that it is actually show me that splash screen, and then it go to that start application. Let me stop it and rerun that application so that you can see that. So we have successfully, what you can say, that created that splash screen. You can see that we are seeing those Ninja Turtle image, and then it is coming up here. So now the next thing is that we want to do, rather than we show this default application, we want to show on the top, I want to create actually something like I want to do something like this. So I want to show a custom splash screen, which is done. So I want to show the character images of the TNT, and then I want to show some radio buttons. And then when I show those radio buttons, I want to, what you can say, that whenever I select a different radio button based on the character, it will show me a different image on the screen. So that is what that is an application that we want to develop here. So let me quickly go into that one. Okay. So if we look at our application, so let me quickly make a new page here. Here I say that I want to have a new folder. We have pages. Inside the pages, I want to create a new file, and that is tmnt underscore home underscore page dot, and that will be a stateful widget, because we need to maintain the state of that which specific image has been selected, or which specific uh, uh, radio button has been selected, and accordingly we need to change that. So we say stateful class. So I say that tmnt Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and this is our home page. And then inside, I want to create a final title, and then of course we need to say required and this dot title. It should be title. I make it title. Okay, final title, and then I will just try to say that here I say tmnt homepage, So it is creating the title. It is showing me some errors, but I will show you that. What is that? So we have a title. Okay, why it is coming? We what is happening here? Let me. What we have a final title or final string title. So we have a title that we are getting from the user, and then we don't want to do that. What is happening? Let me quickly, this is our, okay, so let me quickly do that. And then here, I want a final title. And then here, I want to say required, and we say title. Actually, this it will be this dot title. Okay. And then I want to do one thing here. Okay, I want to create a few things here. And then rather than I show send this title, that Flutter demo, I want to show that title as a TMNT app. Okay, so when I do that, rather than if I just try to do one thing here, return scaffold and then the body, we will delete, of course. We will scaffold and then we can put that one here rather than this placeholder. And then, of course, we don't have that background color, leave that. Then we don't need that center. We also don't need this thing. And then let me put that one constant and then remove that this one, and then we are also removing that. Okay, so now if I just go back here, now you can see that it is showing me this thing, and we have two returns, so it should be one return only. So now you can see that we have get our application. So we have the title and unutilized. So actually this will be a widget.title that has already been fixed. I mean, actually we are trying to access so uninitiated. So maybe I can say string, and then it will go away. Okay, so we are showing that title here and all. So now, what about the state? So first of all, what is the state? Which specific index has been selected? So we say selected image index, and that will be 0. So we have that specific selected image index. And then what do you mean by a selected image? Actually, we are going to create a list here. So let me put that one here. So actually this represents, this show me the images here. So we say asset slash images master.png, which is the Sprinter master image. And then we have a Donatello, we have a Leonardo, we have Michelangelo. So we are specifying the assets based on a string. So this is a list of strings, and these are the locations of the image assets. The next thing that I want to create a list for the image titles. So the first one is the master Splinter, second one is Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael. So we are giving based on the image and the index value. Index value is 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. We are giving the title for that images. And the next thing I would like to have is that rather than having this one, center, I want to add a padding. And inside the padding, we have the padding like constant padding that will be edge insets dot all, and then we are going to leave dot point 0. So we are going to leave that padding, and then inside the padding we have a child, and that child is actually a column. Okay. And inside the column, we are specifying the cross-axis alignment, and then we say cross-axis alignment dot center. So we are centralized, center align that one. What is happening here? Why it is the child is showing expected? This is the column. This is our padding. Okay, so after the padding here, we need to have a comma before that. So we need to do that. Okay, so inside the child, we have, let me quickly, get that text here. So we say children, and inside that children, we have a text, and then it is a text, not this one. So so now here, if we look at that, we are saying that image title, and then we are saying that image underscore selected index. So it's an undefined. Why I have selected that one, underscore selected. Let me copy that part here. Maybe there is an value here. So now you can see that we are getting the master splinter, which is the zero index value, which is default value, and then we have this one. Okay. So the next thing that I want to add here, I want to leave some space between that, between the text and the next image. Next thing that we want to display is that one, and then we have a container, and then inside the container we will have an image. So let me put it over there. So rather than look at it, we are say container, which is the height and width, and then we say we have a box decoration, we have a shadow, all that, and then inside the child of that container we are putting that asset image, and then we are saying that based on the underscore image assets, so the index value is 0, or the whatever the selected index is, that is going to, in the beginning it is 0, so it is showing me that specific image. Okay, so what is the next? We are again we are leaving some space after that image child, and then after we want to put a container which contains the, what you can say that, let me contain the let me quickly pull that container here. Okay, so now when I save it, now you can see that we have this. So let me go that container one by one. So in the beginning, in the top level, we have a padding, so we can leave some padding around the contents. Then we have the cross alignment center, and then we have a text. That text represents that specific title. Okay, so we are from the image titles, we are getting whatever the index value which has been selected. The next thing that I leave some space between the image and the title text. And then the next thing is that we put a container, and then inside the container, we have an image. Okay, so this is an image.asset. We have already seen how we can show the images from the assets. Okay. So we are specifying image.asset, and then we are specifying as a string the location of the image that we want to display over here. And then we have another container where we say the width is equal to double dot infinity, mean that the width will be covered as much width as possible. And then we are leaving some padding. So we are leaving some padding, and then inside we have what you can say that child, which is a radio group. Okay, so we are putting a radio group, so all these buttons has been grouped into the radio group, and that will be the value of that one. So it means that this group value can be of the integer type. Okay, so we have specified that integer, which is the selected index. And then we say whenever that something is selected, accordingly it will change the selected index value based on the value that is coming. If that value is not given, then it will assign the value 0. Otherwise, it will assign that value to the selected index, and we are calling the set state, so that we are, wherever is needed, we are going to redraw or rebuild those widgets which are need to be rebuilt. Like in the image, we need to rebuild that image with a different image source. So that's what we can do. The next thing is, again, we are putting a column, and inside the column we have the children, we have a text which is like first one, and then after that we are leaving some space, and then we are using the list, using the assets.length.index. We are using to generate, we are generating from the list of the assets all the number of the radio button. So we are putting a padding around that. Then we have a container. Inside the container, we have a box decoration. We are specifying, if it is not selected, then what will be the color. If it is selected, what will be the color and the border. So we are specifying those decorations here. And then here we say child is a radio list tile, and then title tile. So radio list tile. So radio list tile also has the title value. So we are showing that the title, so Master Sprinter, Donatello, or Leonardo, and then as well as we are showing the radio button here. So that is again with the label, we have a radio button. So we say radio list tile, and then we are specifying the title that we want to display on it, and then the value. So value is the index values. It is 0 for the master sprinter. For Donatello it is 1. For the Leonardo it is 2. Michelangelo it is 3. And for Raphael it is 4. So this value is for the individual, what you can say that individual radio buttons. And then we say selected. I mean, remember that if we just refresh my page here, then you will see that the first element or the master splinter is show the image, and then it also has been selected. So it is coming from this particular specific line. So we are saying that if the selected index is equal to the index value or the value of that specific radio button, then it will be selected. And because in the starting the selected index image index is 0, and then index value for this master splinter is also 0, and this will return me true. So it only this will be selected and other will not be selected. Okay, so then we have the active color. So if it is an actively selected, then what will be the color? The tile color, if this has been what will be the color of the tile? Again, it is a transparent. And then we have the containing the padding, we have edge grid, and then we are telling the shape. So we are specifying those things. And now if we look at that, whenever we click on that, it will go into that radio group and execute this on click method and change the index value. So when it change the index value, it will update the images based on that. So that is the what we can say that the practical here we are getting the input. So next what we will see, we will build two types of application. The one is the login and the registration, so where we are managing the login and the registration pages, and we will also try to see if we can have multiple pages in the one application. And the next application we will see that how we can build a to-do list application in which we can add the tasks that we want to do. We can remove those tasks if they are done. We can specify their status that it is done or removed. So we can do that. So we will see in the next practical session these two applications we will build practically. We will not see the slides, but rather than we build the applications and see every step inside it. So let's go back to the slides. And so we have done that specific Ninja Turtle application, and this is the references. So this is the lecture for today, and I hope that you enjoyed. It is a long lecture, but it is required. Okay, so hopefully you enjoy, and thank you.